Hello.
Good morning or good afternoon.
Depends where you are.
Do you go by Tony or Antony?
They've called me worse, but Tony I'll take.
Tony, okay. Sounds good. I'm Melissa. Nice to meet you,
Hey.
Tony.
Hey. I don't know if I missed your first invitation, but it's possible.
Yeah, I should have checked to make sure. Sometimes that just happens with teams. So, but I'm glad I checked and I said, geez, I should make sure he's got everything he needs. So
Yeah, things go to clutter, they go to junk, they evaporate,
true.
But I had the placeholder and I hadn't heard we weren't doing it. So
yes. Oh, good. Thank you for doing that. So great. And I just printed out, I thought I sent everyone the background about the presentation and your background, but it's up to you. I'm happy to give you an intro. What's your preference? Or do you want to just do your own blurb? We can go either way.
what would you say? Just
I was going to say what you sent me.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that'll do. That's fine.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll do that. That way I'm sure that there's people that didn't read through everything. As much as I'd like to think people read everything that I send them, I'm sure that they skim it. So
yeah, those days are gone.
I know.
We're so inundated with information flying in from all directions.
Right. And so I know that some of our colleagues at A4, the Association for the Advancements of Alternatives Assessments, I know that we invited that group to attend as well. So there may be, I don't know how many people will be in the meeting, but we may have a bunch of folks from that membership organization as well.
Okay. So I'm going to take a risk for a moment. I'm going to I've got 3 computer screens in front of me. I'm going to dial in and see if I can demo on one, share the camera on the other one. So let me
go
see.
right ahead. If you'll have time, I'll do the intro once we get, around 1 o'clock too.
All right. Is the audio messed up or is all good? You can hear me?
Sounds
no
good.
Echo. Okay, great. Then I will share from the screen.
And that's working. I can see your screen.
I've already had a couple of problems this morning. There's ChatGPT has become a bad thing. Our agency blocked ChatGPT earlier this week.
I am not familiar with that. Is that like an internal?
Oh, ChatGPT? Oh, it is the large language model of AI that everybody is talking about in terms of, if you're watching the news, school kids are using it to write essays for them. People are writing publications with it. It's a fascinating tool, and there's real utility to it. But by blocking that, I think they've caused there may be other problems, but everything seems to be working okay right now.
Oh, that's good.
So let's hope. Bring up some other tools.
Welcome to those that have joined us already. We'll wait a couple minutes as we're approaching the start time to let everyone in. And I know that there are several folks that had conflicts, so we are recording this, and I'm going to provide that just for members afterward that could not attend, but I know that there were at least a handful of folks that asked to have the recording after the fact. And as we're waiting to get started, I've noticed that there's a new feature on Teams in addition to the chat, there's a Q&A option now. So I did put a little message in there, and it looks like that might be they must have added that as a better option for asking questions during a presentation. So that's great. So we can give that a try today. Either way, I'll be monitoring both ends of it. Great, and I see people are starting to enter the room. Thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to give it about another minute or two till we get started. I'll start with an introduction of our presenter in just about 30 seconds or so. Hi, Molly. And Molly, if there's anything that you want to share for your members, you're welcome to to do so. We're pretty casual here at IC2.
I had 4 hours sleep and I forgot I was doing this, so I came to work with a T-shirt that says "I'm young, scrappy, and hungry." And only two parts of that are true.
Well, great. I'll go.
That's where we would store our experimental properties and predicted properties. Separately, again, we have a database of exposure data. We have a database of in vitro bioactivity data. All of these databases are brought together in our center by different principal investigators and student service contractors, our postdocs, etc. And what you see here is the web-based interface that pulls it all into one place and surfaces it up for you. So 1.2 million chemicals. We have been working on this for, as I said, for over 2 decades. And one of the greatest benefits of an application like this is that this is not simply about one chemical at a time. We want to give you a way to quickly harvest, extract, and bring to your environment for you to plot, manipulate, put in your own databases, put in your reports. We want to give you as fast access to our data as we possibly can. So the batch search is where we will do some of this today in this application. Then I'm going to migrate out to the other applications to show you how you can just continue to do more and more. I'm going to start on the lists page. So lists is built up to pull together categories of chemicals that may be of interest. For example, PFAS. There is a little bit of interest in the world of PFAS right now, as we know. So from the 1.2 million chemicals that we have pulled together, we have built a definition of what we deem to be PFAS structures. There are OECD definitions, one CF2, one CF3. Ours are slightly different. Every release of the data, we come up with a list of PFAS chemicals that are supposed to support our projects. Here is that list. There are 14,735 PFAS chemicals in our database of 1.2 million. Under our definition, it's categorized based on chemical structures. It's fully defined right here. This is PFAS. By the way, if you go to PubChem, which has got over 100 million substances right now, using the OECD definitions, over 6 million of those chemicals are deemed to be PFAS. That is pretty scary to a lot of people. Everyone starts saying there's 6 million PFAS. There's a lot more detail to it than that. And some of these have never been made. They're simply catalog chemicals that people say they can make. That's a PFAS list. However, we also have regulatory lists. So there's 40 CFR 116.4 designation of hazardous substances. So this is in a document. It's a list of chemicals. But we want to work with this list of chemicals. We want to be able to pull this information together and have it in a very fast format that we can deal with. So this is that list of chemicals. There's 333 of them. Not every chemical has a structure. For example, lead acetate, depending on whether or not you've got a lead single valence, double valence, you've got uranyl nitrate. Some of these are crystalline structures, complex. Some of these are ammoniated, no specific stoichiometry. Some of these are polymers. So we have to deal with the complexities of not just structures, but really complex chemicals. But here we have a list of chemicals, and I want to simply pull data on those chemicals. So as I said, every table, you can pull those data. So I'm going to simply start by pulling down what we have available for this list of chemicals. It's going to open up the spreadsheet. And what did we put in? What have we got for this chemical? Here's every single hyperlinked substance identifier, the names, the CAS numbers, the INCHI keys. If you know what an INCHI key is, it's a structural identifier that's from the international effort of EPA. Molecular weight, formula, etc., etc. All of this information is in this system. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to want to harvest more than this, more than just the identifiers. So let's get a set of chemicals. I happen to be copying them from my list, but you could do this directly from your own systems. You could start typing in chemical names. You could start typing in CAS numbers, etc., etc. And I'm going to go back to the batch search. And I'm going to put those CAS numbers in here. I'm actually going to do a couple of things. 79-1, that looks like a CAS number. I'm going to switch 52, that might be another chemical. I'm going to add caffeine. I'm going to add the misspelling of caffeine. We're going to have BPA and benzene. So now I got a mix of CAS numbers, names, some bad CAS numbers. What happens? What I want to do is I want to pull from this set of databases through this one application information. And what do I want to pull? I want to put into an Excel file the CAS numbers for every one of those chemicals. Well, I input CAS numbers for some, but not for all. I want to grab systematic names. These are UPAC names, International Union Pure Applied Chemistry. I want the SMILES. I want the mass because I want this data set is for my group doing non-targeted analysis. I would like my OPERA predictions. OPERA is a suite of predictive models that was developed by Kamel Mansouri while he was postdocing here at the EPA. He's now at NIEHS, and he builds these wonderfully rich QSAR models. I, in fact, showed you some of those reports. I also want to know, is there safety data available? What are the hits in our ToxCast and Tox21 assays, over 2,000 assay endpoints? How many articles are published on PubMed? Is there an IRIS report? Is there a Wikipedia article? And are there related substance relationships, i.e. degradation products, monomer to polymer, things like this? And I'm going to pull all of the toxicity data from our toxicity database, ToxFile. All I've done is input a set of chemicals, and I've said, give me all of this information. So this is a starting point for the type of data that you can pull. I think you saw how fast that was. By the way, that was a random set of chemicals. I just pulled a list. And I'm going to open that Excel file, and we're going to see what it harvested for us. Now, the one thing about the dashboard is that it's been very limited in terms of the type of data that you could deal with in terms of searches. Everything I showed you just now was CAS numbers and names, but it's still been able to pull an awful lot of information. So here's the main data. I input some CAS numbers, and it found a set of chemicals based on CAS numbers. Here's names, SMILES, etc. These two chemicals look like CAS numbers, but are not. They failed what they call the checksum. The last digit in the CAS number is calculated based on the first two blocks. Notice that a CAS number has 3 blocks. It's a block of, commonly you can go from 2 to X, 8, 9. The second block is always a block of 2, and the third block is the checksum, and it's based on a calculation of the first two. So those two CAS numbers fail checksum. We see this all the time. We see it in publications. We see it in regulatory reports. We see it in so many of our own documents. It's so easy to mistype numbers. So CAS numbers are really crucial to get right. I did not check search by name. So caffeine, BPA, benzene failed because I didn't add the name as a search. So all I'm going to do now is click chemical name. And notice I could also do it by INCHI key, substance identifier, formula, mass. I can pull the data that way also. I'm going to download the report again, and now you'll see a mix of the data based on names and CAS numbers. So in these data is this incredibly rich set of the data that we are interested in for hazard, in vitro screening, et cetera, et cetera. So now we've got those names. Notice it could not deal with the misspelling of caffeine. The reason I'm showing this is for one particular reason. Right now, we are working on a solution for this. People misspell their names all the time. There is a distinction in a name search between cholesterol, CHLEST. Somebody misses the O, it will fail because it's an exact match. We're working with a software application, so we'll do fuzzy searches. When we fix these names on the fly, we'll tell you that we had to fix your name to get hits. We're hoping that this will roll out in a couple of months, but this will solve so many of the problems we face when people have got slightly different spellings of names, where they take a UPAC name and they flip it into an index name. All of that searching we have to deal with because you cannot expect that we have every variant of every name in the database. So we're working on that. But you can see the hits. We also have here a set of related relationships. So in this case, what we have is a chemical where 1-methylbenzene is related to it's a member of a set of total petroleum hydrocarbons. So that is a relationship where that chemical is a member of a larger data set. Think about PAHs, a set of specific chemicals. They could be a member of the category of PAHs. We also go the opposite way. We are dealing with chemicals that degrade in the environment to transformation products. So think metabolites, photolysis, soil degradation. We build these relationships directly into the database and surface them up for you. It also includes things like monomers mapped to polymers. This is great when you're looking for sets of chemicals and you're trying to be predictive for a set of chemicals. How may they degrade in the environment? How may they show up? How should I look for them? For every one of these chemicals that we have just run through, we have dumped the entire list of toxicity data, and we have 8,000 rows of tox data with the details of the actual type of measurement that was done, the type of risk assessment purpose, whether or not it was in human, rat, dog, etc. So all in an Excel spreadsheet. You can dive into these data to your heart's content. Now I'm going to flip. I'm going to flip somewhere else. I'm going to flip to a tool that allows me to dive into the data and navigate it in a slightly different way. I'm going to take the same list of chemicals. Actually, I haven't had my caffeine today, so I may as well take that one away. That's a bad spelling. I'm now going to go to something called the cheminformatics modules. Also available to you. This is a proof of concept suite of tools. So we declare it directly on the bottom. We're using a lot of the data that's under the dashboard. We are trying to figure out new ways that we can serve it to you so you can navigate it and get more value than we can on the dashboard. I'm going to flush this out. I'm going to do a search for those chemicals. It's the same list of chemicals that I had before, CAS numbers and names. And I have my person over here is telling me that the resolver on this side is actually slow. We deployed this earlier this week, so I'm still trying to figure out why things have slowed down so dramatically. I just got off a call with Johns Hopkins University where I was demoing this for about an hour. So tell him again, resolver is slow. That's disappointing. All right, let me try something else here. The thing was it's going so well. I'm going to try something slightly different on another module, see if that resolver is working. All right. It's working in this module. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try and come at these data in a slightly different way. CAS numbers and names are for chemicals that you know you're interested in. You're interested in looking for AT05-7, that's BPA, atrazine. You know what you're looking for. What about if you have a chemical that you know you have interest in, you can't find any data, and you want to start looking across 1.2 million chemicals and see if we have anything like it? So this is a substructure similarity module that historically has not been available to you. We literally just put a version of this as a beta under the dashboard, just to show you. We just put it in a couple of weeks ago. It's right here, structure search beta. But we've been testing it over in this application for a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm interested in atrazine, but I'm going to clip off this part, these side chains, and I want to do a substructure search. Find me every chemical that looks that has that substructure in it. So that substructure search now, it's taking that particular substructure. That should have taken a fraction of a second. My IT guy is not responding to me. Okay, so it is a little slower than normal, but it just searched 1.2 million chemicals to find the substructures. If you look at the red on the interface, it is telling you that that particular substructure that I've identified and drew in that drawing editor, I actually did it. I pulled atrazine and I clipped, but I can draw it. That is the substructure highlighted. What we have here is we have these little colored boxes in the top right-hand corner. This is telling you that we have data available. I hover over that colored box, and this tells you that we have acute mammalian toxicity data. We have carcinogenicity data, genotoxicity data. From one substructure, out of 1.2 million chemicals, I've retrieved 712 records. I'm going to sort by toxicity. So it is now sorting those chemicals, and it's going to return that set to me with the toxicity data sorted out. All the very high toxicity is going to be brought to the top. What it's also showing me on the bottom right-hand corner, these chemicals will come in. He's actually telling me what's going on the server as we speak. These numbers at the bottom are telling you the similarity between the substructure that I searched and the actual chemical of interest. But I can hover over these and I can see the type of information that I have available. Now, one of the things I want to do here is I want to remove all salts. I want to remove the multi-component systems. I want to remove the charge systems. And as I go through this has got a filter in the background. Yeah, he's telling me that we're throwing some errors in the background. I apologize. So these are filters that I can add on top. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to push this set of chemicals over to this other module called the hazard module. And here what I can do now is I can run a set of queries to pull back data about these chemicals and provide a hazard profile of these chemicals in a nice colored form, assuming that this is going to work. As I said, it's like acting with children and animals. I've given this demo 100 times and it's never failed on me. That's incredibly disappointing. Right, I'm going to try a different site for this. Apologize for this. I'm going to try and find it on my other computer. Are there any questions at this point while I'm trying to find an internal working version here? Oh, just as I was thinking it was going to fail, it brought it back. Okay, so what we have here, this commonly is done in about 5 seconds for 50 chemicals. We definitely have issues on the server, I can see them. So what it's done here is it's taken that list of chemicals and it is showing us a color-coded map of the hazard information available for those chemicals. Each one of these individual cells is not just a pretty color with a ranking on it. VH, very hazardous. It's based on a trumping scheme that we have already published. The article itself is available. As I said, this is available to you publicly, so you feel free to go take a look. I can put this link to this article in the chat box later. Should be open access, I think. What we've got here is a trumping scheme where we look at all of the data that we have from all of the sources that we have pulled together, and we take the most conservative view of how to report that back to you. So for simazine, we have a very high chronic aquatic toxicity from this source. It's an authoritative source, it's EPA CLP, but if I click on that cell, it shows you all of the sources that have reported on this particular chemical. Every single one of these individual cells is active. So simazine, endocrine disruption. We have both experimental data as well as predictive data. Very high, bold means it's from an authoritative source. What are authoritative sources? We hover over this particular little on hover above the table, and it says what the authoritative sources are. So you can imagine that we think of IRIS from the EPA as an authoritative source, the Prop 65 list as an authoritative source, ECA CLP as authoritative. So that's our list of authoritative sources. And if the most conservative call that we have comes from an authoritative source, you can recognize it because it is in a bold font. VH bold authoritative source. We also have screening sources. So this is the segregation that we have chosen to do in the application. We've said these are the screening sources. This is how we've assembled them. And if we don't have an authoritative source call, it will be normal font, not bold, just a normal font. There is a third font that shows up in the table that you can see, and that is italic. Italic means we don't have really data that we can serve up to you, so we've had to predict these data. And this is a QSAR model, and this is based on the EPA's toxicity estimation software tool, written by my colleague, Todd Martin, who I've had the privilege of working with. He's been writing test software, toxicity estimation software tool for well over a decade. It is available to you. You can download it and run it locally. But we have that now, this entire map of the data. So what I would like to do is from this set of data, I started with a substructure. I have retrieved 50 chemicals. I've migrated them into this environment, and I'm most interested in carcinogenicity. So I want to sort based on carcinogenicity. Each one of these column headings is simply a sortable form. I then want to sort based on developmental. I then want to sort based on eye irritation. So you can see what it's doing is it's starting to sort through the data. I can also clear that out. There's an awful lot of data here, right? Every single cell where we have data, whether it's experimental, from authoritative screening or predicted, we have data under each colored cell. We also have no data. There are examples where we have not yet pushed those chemicals through predictions. We have not yet stored them in the database. So it can become a sparse matrix. We certainly have a lot of data on the top four. We have data here on some of these other chemicals. If the structures are serving up correctly, yeah, now you can see the structures. So again, now we have a color map, and the question is, how much data do we have sitting under this? I'm actually going to switch back on. I'm going to hide the no data chemicals and set. Okay. I'm now going to download all of the data that we have available. I'm going to put it into an Excel file. So we've done a substructure search. We've pulled all of the data that we have available. We have produced it into a format that uses the trumping scheme to show you what the profiling is according to all of these hazard and there's fate and ecotoxicity endpoints. And it would be preferable if we didn't just dump you yet another Excel file. So we preserve the visualization of the data. So here is your color-coded view of the data that we generated in the application. And underneath these data, each one of those cells that we have, here are the hazard records. So you can see what the original sources were. You can see articles. We tell you the rationale for how we have generated the call on a very high. We've actually got the experimental data here. The question I want you to ask yourself at this point is, if you were to do this at this point in your own environment, if you wanted to start with a chemical structure, do a substructural search and harvest all of the known data that could be harvested by the EPA over many, many years, how long would it take you to do that at this point? Assuming the application was running as fast as normal, for which I apologize, you could have done that in less than 5 minutes. It's a good path in. I noticed there is a question. Can you tease out data for a chemical that is part of a mixture and data for the mixture itself? Isododecane is technically a mixture. CAS numbers. So I'm going to try and answer this question in real time. So let's go. I'm going to flip back to the dashboard for a moment, and we're going to look for those two CAS numbers. So we have 31807 55-3, and we have 133,475 82.6. 82-6. So the question is, do we have the chemicals? Let's see. So those are the chemicals. So it's an interesting example immediately. Why? Because isododecane, you actually don't know where the methyl is on that chain. So that's what we call a Marcouche representation of a chemical. So I'm just going to focus in on that one chemical for a moment. So this is isododecane. It's an ill-defined substance. Therefore, we cannot do QSAR predictions. But do we have it mapped to related substances? So there are the related substances from that Marcouche structure. We have done an enumeration of those chemicals. So now, and you can see the top right-hand corner says Marcouche child. We have algorithms that will take this complex form right here and produce those as Marcouche children. Now I want to actually view that set of chemicals, and I want to download that information into a simple Excel spreadsheet. Of course, I can export Excel spreadsheet. However, what I actually want to do is I want to take that set of chemicals, the parent Marcouche, simple isododecane, as well as the Marcouche children. I'm going to send it to the batch search. And now I want to export the information of interest to see what I have available. And you've seen me do this. I would be able to click here and see what properties are available, what toxicity data is available, where exposure information is available, all in one place. However, we also have a way to view that over in the other application. So I'm going to flush that report. I'm going to clear out the chemicals. I'm going to bring back a set of chemicals, and I'm going to profile them. And there we go. Everything there, you can see the italics. That means predictions are happening in the background. So it is using the test predictions to generate the predicted bioaccumulation, exposure, et cetera, using the test software. I saw another comment about botanical extracts, and right now I'm working with HESI to put botanical extracts into this system. So I'm trying to remember some of the ones we've been working on. But if I come to the home page and I search, I'm going to do a substructure search on, let's try ginkgo. I believe we have something. Okay, ginkgo biloba extract. This database is 14 months out of date. Last time we snapshotted was February 2022. We've been adding pile of botanical extracts in collaboration with HESI. I think we have up to 30 ginkgo extracts now. We can have experimental data with this, but of course, no structure, we cannot do predictions. So we can map very complex chemicals together, and I'm sure this is of interest to you. We're all thinking about AFFFs. I believe this is public. Okay, so here we have all I've done is search for the term AFFFs. So we have these AFFF Solberg blanks. These are firefighting foams that have been screened through our Toxicast inventory. This is actually the particular spec, mil spec, 6% mil spec AFFF. And we're going even further right now in terms of outlining what this looks like. So if I show you on my internal application, internal means that it is updated every single day with data. We have been working on AFFF replacements internally, looking at what's feasible. But in order to do that, we actually have to harvest as much information as we can and make this available. So I registered this one last week. This is not yet public, but it will go public. We don't hide this from you. So what we have here is the first publication that looked at a 3% formulation analysis of an AFFF. It tells you where it came from. It gives you the exact members of the set of chemicals within that formulation, reported by mass spectrometry. You can see each of the individual PFAS chemicals. You can see the preservatives, the anti-rust components, all in one application. So this is a complex mixture built up of 38 components. Each member is represented there. We can harvest as much data as we want from this. So this is the type of complex mixture we have. I think I saw a comment from Topher. Can you say more about tests, domain of applicability? Yep. So if we go to the tools menu here, so we pre-predict for many chemicals, and we put it in the database so that we will serve it up to you in real time. So if I go to pick up BPA, for example. So if I pick up BPA, we have done for 1.2 million substances, we have generated the predictions for as many of these as we possibly can. They have to be organics. They also have to not be ferrocene, organometallics, very complex to deal with. So as I explained before. So now we have these predictions, and I'm interested in water solubility. And test we have 4 predicted values. ACD Labs, many of you might know Advanced Chemistry Development out of Toronto. I was their chief science officer for 10 years, so I managed all of their products for that period. I've been gone for almost 15 years now. Opera is what we built internally. What we cannot do with ACD Labs commercial software is tell you the details of their calculation. What is their training set? What is their test set? We cannot do that. Opera is open source. It is built by a postdoc who is here. You can go download Opera. I will get to test Topher, I promise. So if you look for Kamel Mansouri and Opera, you can download his software directly from his GitHub account. You can run this locally. Last night we ran 600,000 chemicals in 8 hours through his software, generating certain properties. So very stable, very well supported, excellent software. So we have Opera predictions. Opera predictions, as I showed you, has this information. It tells you the global applicability domain, the water solubility prediction for BPA is inside the global applicability domain, which is represented here by this nice plot, the distribution of water solubility data, which you see right here in terms of the training and test overlap. BPA is right in the middle. And here are the chemicals that are used to make the prediction of bisphenol A. By the way, bisphenol A has got 3 experimental values in the database. No problem predicting this. We have the data. It also tells you about the local applicability domain index. This is a value between 0 and 1, and it tells you the similarity of the most similar chemicals that are used in the prediction. And then the confidence level, 0.87, also between 0 and 1. If you want to fully understand how the model works, then because we have full transparency, you can click on the QMRF and it downloads a PDF file that explains in detail how the model was built, what the training set was, what the descriptors are, 100% transparency for Opera. The question Topher asked was about test. Let's talk EpiSuite first. That's the third one. EpiSuite is also from EPA. I'm sure most of you know it. It's been around for over 2 decades. We don't know how EpiSuite prediction algorithms work in detail. We didn't develop it. EpiSuite can also be downloaded and used. I don't think the training sets and test sets have changed in a decade. We're adding data for training and test on a regular basis, pretty much daily. Now we go to test. So just as we did with Opera, we give you a detailed report that shows you well, in the case of test, we have 3 different models that I used: hierarchical clustering, group contribution, nearest neighbor, 3 models, and then we give you a consensus value. We give you a view of the actual chemicals that are similar to the chemical that you're predicting for in this prediction table right here. We show you what was used. We show you the similarity coefficients between those chemicals, what the experimental values are, what the predicted values are. So you have a way of visually interrogating the quality of prediction that results from test. So you have all of this available to you. I said that we pre-predict all of this. That is true. However, we also have the ability to do it on the fly. So imagine that we don't have the chemical that you're interested in. As an example, 6-PPD. Well, many of us are talking about 6-PPD. Actually, while I'm mentioning that, I just want to show you that we are adding data constantly. 6-PPD, there's the quinone. So as we learn about chemicals, that we have interest in chemicals, we map this information directly into the system, and we pull data and we release it in the future. So there's 6-PPD quinone. So I could go into my system here and I could pull 6-PPD there's the chemical of interest, and I can say, actually, I'm clipping these methyl groups, and I'm going to chlorinate it here. Now I want to predict all of these ecotoxicological properties on the right-hand side. I want the physicochemical properties, and then I click calculate. So what it's done now is it's turned that chemical into the SMILE string. It is hitting the prediction server. So this is all happening in real time. I've never drawn that chemical before. It did nearest neighbor, group contributions, single model predictions, hierarchical clustering, and it's given us the consensus models. It's telling us directly we don't have an experimental flash point, melting point, boiling point, but it will show you how that model how that model performed. So that happened all in real time. I drew a chemical. That chlorinated form of 6-PPD may or may not exist. I've certainly just invented it on my side, but we generated all those predictions in real time. What we don't do, just in case any of you are worried, we do not store your chemicals. We do not go look at your chemicals. This is it's a kind of privacy, HIPAA for predictions, if you like. We allow you to do your predictions, and you can take your data away. This is one chemical at a time. Going back to the cheminformatics modules, we have the ability to do bulk predictions. So this is, we need to improve the speed of this. We're building out what we call a Kubernetes cluster of computers. You put in 1,000, 5,000 chemicals. We will give you a URL that you will return to a few minutes later. We'll send you an email and say your predictions are complete, but we will do all of these predictions en masse for you, and you'll be able to download them as an Excel file or an SD file. So this is bulk prediction based on the same algorithms. And over here we have the new prediction models that we are building. This is brand new. I don't think any of you have seen this unless you've been to the site in the past week. This gives you the ability to actually see the data in details. So for every model that we build from this point forward, we will provide you a detailed Excel sheet explaining the performance of the model. It will include the training set, the test set, the statistics of performance for that model. And I'm showing you one right here. So this is the cover sheet for the new water solubility model that we have built based on the opera data. Here's the summary with all of the training test set splits, the performance, the R squared, Q squared, RMSE values on the different modeling approaches that we took. Here's the set of training data, all of the chemicals directly, including the actual experimental value that was used in order to perform the training. Here's the test set. Here's the regressor. That's the performance of that one model. Random forest, XGBoost, and the consensus models. Every single model we build from this point forward, we are going to give you this level of information that you can use. So when somebody says, how do we know the performance of the model when you predicted these 5 chemicals on this day? The answer is you will have saved the exact data necessary to report that. Again, 100% transparency. I know I only have about 5 minutes left. There was another question.
Yeah, I think about 3 questions have come in since Topher's, so
sorry.
Feel free to whatever you can answer in our time. So
Okay.
I think it starts with Patrick Harmon's.
All right. Nice, exciting tool. Any cautions in using the tool in practice for alternatives assessment or for regulatory decision making? This application that you see here, the hazard tool, there is a report coming out shortly from the regulatory officers that will report using this tool for their purposes. They use it as a screening tool. They use it primarily as a way of sourcing data, which they then will go further and validate for their purposes. But this is the fastest way that they have to access, tens of public domain databases, take advantage of all of our curation efforts. So this tool is being used for that purpose. But please note right at the bottom, it says it is a prototype tool. It's using a compilation of information. We cannot validate everybody else's data, their curation, their extraction, their conversions. It's impossible to do that. So I would always say when you report the data back, please make sure that you are clear with where the data was sourced from. And even in the reports that we generate, back to that report, we say that we say this directly. We may give you a warning and a caution. But I think this is true about any public tool at this point. Things are changing so quickly. I recall a little while back trying to use the hazard module filters to remove hazard records that affect the export in Excel. The filter didn't affect the records. That is still true, Logan. It is still at that stage. We have 3 months of work presently underway that will deal with some of the filtering. There are a couple of bugs in here also. If you use the ability to generate transformation products on the fly, then we also don't include that information. So as an example, if I pull in DDT, I think it is, and atrazine, if I add these chemicals, I can generate using a chemical transformation simulator module that runs in Athens, Georgia, with our colleagues from SEM. This is now going to predict transformation products. We have a bug here where we don't, for new chemicals, we can't give them a CAS name because they don't exist. They've only been generated in a computer. We also don't give them a name yet. This is all related, Logan. So just to clarify, I input DDT and atrazine. It predicted these chemicals as being degradation products, transformation products, but we don't have a CAS and we don't have a name. If you put that into an Excel sheet, we can't give you anything. So we're going to fix it with smiles or something. And then, Lauren, would your system have been able to predict the quinone transformation from 6-ppd? So we don't have a transformation simulator ourselves. I have not tried that calculation in CTS. I can point you directly to CTS, so you can try it. This is it, chemical transformation simulator, and you can input the transformation products here. Just copy the smiles directly, single chemical, and choose how you want to do the calculation. I don't think we have time to do it right now. I'm going to stop there. As I said, it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's so many things. I apologize about the performance for a moment there. I hope that this was useful. My email I'm putting in there. I am Antony without the H. I blame my father, who would have made my life easier if he put one in. There's another Antony Williams who lives on the West Coast, works for EPA. He gets my emails and occasionally my paycheck. Just joking. He did get my credit card receipt. Please follow up with me. Please ask me questions. I'm excited by what we do. I think we're doing good things, and I'd love to help you learn more, get use out of it, and occasionally hear that you like it. So I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. This was, for non-chemists, this was very interesting as well. So thank you, everyone, for attending. This has been recorded, and I will share it with the membership of the A4 and the IC2. So again, thank you very much. This was very, very helpful, and I hope you all have a great remainder of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.